taking the Jews out of Egypt, he was 80 years old. So it's a brocha. So in this week's Parsha, we tell the story of the 12 men who were dispatched by Moses from the desert to go and survey the land of Israel and its inhabitants. So the purpose of their journey was to prepare the Jewish people for the subsequent conquest and settlement of the land. So the mission ended in disaster, and the spies infused in the Jewish people fear and despair, resulting in a national hysteria, and refused to continue the journey to the promised land. So the spies were severely punished, and the entire generation ultimately died in in the desert. Only 39 years later, after the first episode with the spies, Joshua, who is the successor of Moses and one of the original 12 spies sent by Moses, sent his own 2 spies to scout the land of Canaan. So this time, though the mission ended in success, they returned to the people with an optimistic message, encouraging and empowering the people to reach their destination. Welcome, Bettel.
Hello.
I actually have to give you regards from Rabbi Kotlarski. I was with him on Sunday, and he said, here we used to call him Bettel. I said, here too we call him Bettel.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, he says to send you his love to you.
Thank you.
So they returned to the people with we're speaking about the spies, and we said, what was the difference? Moses was the greatest prophet of Israel and the greatest leader of Israel, yet his spies failed miserably. Joshua was a disciple of Moses and not on the same level of his master, yet his spies were successful. Why? So in order to answer this question, let us turn our attention to a strange medrash. The second chapter of Joshua begins with these words: Vayishlach Yoshua ben Nun min hashitim shneim anoshim meraglim cheresh leimer. And I'll translate. I learned this with my 8-year-old Zevi every Shabbos. We have a schedule to learn Yoshua. He's 8 years old, so we do 8 verses. And this is where we're at. And it says, and Joshua, the son of Nun, sent out of Shiftim. Out of Shittim, he sent 2 men, spies, and we say, quote, Cheresh, saying, go see the land and Jericho. And they went, and they came to the house of the innkeeper, whose name was Rahav, and they slept there. Now, the Pentateuch described the 2 spies as Cheresh. Welcome, Mr. Wolf. Now, what does that mean? So the word Cheresh has 2 meanings. Number 1, death. Number 2, earthenware. Pottery made of earth and then baked in a furnace or under the sun, as in the Hebrew term klei cheres. Now, both translations don't seem to make sense here. To send deaf spies would be futile, and to send them with earthenware vessels would also seem strange. So what then does the Torah mean with the description meraglim cheresh? So the Medrash on the book of Ruth presents 2 interpretations. Rabbi Nehemiah says that they went with earthenware pottery. The 2 spies were disguised themselves as pottery salesmen. Rabbi Shimon, the son of Yochai, we all know Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai from Lag BaOmer, he says that Joshua told them to pretend they were deaf so they would be able to do eavesdropping on the secrets of others, since nobody would shy away from taking in their presence. Now, both interpretations are wanting. Why did Joshua want them to disguise themselves as salesmen or earthenware? They could have sold anything, including metal pots. Now, as to the second interpretation, if you're sharing a secret with someone and nearby stands a person you never met, and the guy's acting as though he's deaf, wouldn't you remain a little suspicious? Did Joshua believe that a few minutes of faking sign language to each other would make people feel free to shed all their guards in the presence of these two strangers. It reminds me of an episode that occurred in Russia. Many youths wanted to get out of the army, and they would show up to the medical inspection claiming they were deaf, and anything said to them they ignored, as they mimicked perfect deafness with a forged note of a doctor. Now, one such youth came to the inspector, and he was faking deafness. And the doctor examined him, and whatever was told him, he ignored, as though he didn't hear. Suddenly, the inspector said, "You're free to go home." And this youth immediately stood up and left, and was taken straight in and drafted to the army. So when you're a hypersensitive, you just don't trust anyone claiming to be deaf. Did Joshua really think that the citizens of Canaan, not Canaan, Connecticut, Canaan, the original one, especially officials with secrets worthwhile for the spies to obtain, that they would spill the beans in the presence of two strangers who are fighting deafness? So, the Medrash explains these two concepts, but there's a third interpretation by the great Hasidic master. His name is Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev. Like Rebbe of Oxford, this guy was a Barditchev. And in his work, Kedushas Levi, which actually my father, blessed memory, every single Friday night would take out this Kedushas Levi and he would read a couple of chapters to us. And the Kedushas Levi, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, he says, sometimes one word captures the entire story. You see, the term cheresh, which is a description found only by the spy sent by Joshua, not the one sent by Moses, captures the essential message Joshua transmitted to his two spies. It was the message that turned out into a success story. See, what does it take to be sent on a mission? On a risky mission. And you're sent on a risky mission, but you remain focused, optimistic, confident, faithful. It takes two qualities, Joshua thought. Number one, you must be an earthenware vessel. And number two, you need to be deaf. You see, the first key to be a successful agent for a mission of God is to pretend that you are deaf. Any person who has ever undertaken the task of doing something worthwhile in this world has been told by at least one, if not most people, you're crazy. It'll never work. It can't be done. You want to start a shul in Litchfield? It can't be done. You want to have 30 years ago a Seder in Southbury, Oxford? Impossible. And these things are not going to happen. So the whole world always tells you it's a crazy idea. You want to build a mikveh in Litchfield? Impossible. So if a person listens to all the advice, he'll never succeed in accomplishing God's mission. You see, when many of my emissary colleagues went out 50, 40, 30 years ago, they were all told that they're wasting their time. Whenever we try to start something new, there are always the naysayers who say it can't be done. I do not know if there was a single great project in history that was done without someone criticizing. Some of the most extraordinary people died unappreciated and often ridiculed. Their ideas or creations were innovative, daring, revolutionary. Van Gogh sold one painting his whole life. He died penniless in an asylum. Today, he's considered the greatest impressionist ever. The Rebbe was ridiculed by some during his lifetime. Today, the Rebbe is recognized as one of the greatest souls in all generations. Now, history will judge your actions, the lives you saved, and the pain you prevented, the light you generate, and the truth you teach, even if you aren't winning a popularity contest among the foolish masses. Someone sent me this great image, quote, where it all started. Google, Apple, Amazon, Disney. They all started literally in a garage. Now, Chabad too began in a little shtetl in the Belarus, as all of Hasidic is in a little Ukrainian town, Mezhebush. Now, whatever you do, you need courage. Whatever course you decide upon, there'll always be someone to tell you that you're wrong. John Eliot said, history shows that people who end up changing the world, the great political, social, scientific, technological, artistic, and even sports revolutionaries are always nuts until they are right, and then they're geniuses. So the story of Google is a well-known and incredible. How Larry Page and Sergey Brin, graduates of Stanford, rented a garage from a friend in September of 1998 to develop a search engine. Today, Google is the most commonly used search engine in the world, and it's worth hundreds of billions. And Apple is another insanely popular international brand, but few people realize that it was started in a California garage by three young men, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne. And they developed the first Apple computer in 1976 in the garage of Steve Jobs' parents' home. So getting back to Joshua. Joshua tells his spies that the only way to be a successful emissary, a successful shliach, is to be cheresh, to be a little deaf to negative encouragement. Everyone will always reason why it can be done. Everyone will always tell you, why do you need the headache? But you are on a mission. You have the time to go ahead and make this world a better world. God only blesses you with 120 years. And there's only 24 hours to the day. So we have no time or energy for pessimism or doubts. God sent you on a mission to make this world Eretz Yisrael, to make it a divine world. And if he sent you, you can certainly succeed. Do not allow any voice, inside or outside, to make you doubt them. Remain deaf to the chatter in your head and the chatter by people around you who will explain to you how whatever you're going to do or plan to do will be a colossal failure. The words of General Montgomery, the difficult we do immediately. The impossible takes a little longer. Or they tell the story that a rabbi stands before his congregation and reports there's a massive hole in the roof of the shul. And he turns to them, now I have good news and bad news. And the rabbi continues, the good news is that we have the money to repair it. The bad news is that the money is in your pockets. So the bigger the bricks that critics throw at you, the bigger the palace you're going to build. So Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Barditchev adds yet another dimension to the deafness Joshua demanded. One is that profoundly sensitive. He says sometimes, if you're a sensitive and spiritual soul, when you go somewhere, you pick up and absorb the energy of the place and of the people present. Sometimes I go to a big event, a wedding, a bar mitzvah, a bat mitzvah, a dinner, a reception, or another big event, and I come home and I find myself in a bad mood, exhausted, depleted. I used to blame myself and try to figure out what happened to me, why I'm in such a mess. Then I learned the truth. It's not always me. Sometimes I brought home the energy of other people present there, and I'm confusing it with my own energy. In life, our energies mix with each other. I pick up your energy. You pick up mine. If I'm in the presence of someone who's experiencing a lot of toxic energy, I may absorb it. And then I'm blaming myself for something that doesn't belong to me. So what's the solution? Awareness. Knowing that this is not my energy. And I must differentiate between who I am and who I think I became. And not fall prey to the toxicity which has attached itself to me. You see, everything changes when you start to emit your own frequency rather than absorbing the frequencies of others. You see, when you start imprinting your intent on the universe, rather than receiving an imprint from existence, you are responsible for the energy that you create for yourself, and you're responsible for the energy that you bring to others. So Joshua knew that his spies enter the land of Canaan. And as they walk in the footsteps of the original spies, the sensitive souls that they were, they would pick up all the original energy of Moses' spies, and it may come to define them. Suddenly you find yourself thinking the thoughts and the feelings of other people, and you think it's your own. And sometimes it's so powerful that it's even true for the future. You know, Auschwitz in Poland was a very Jewish town before the war, and it was known as Auschwitz. And there was a holy rabbi, his name was Reb Melech, and his brother Reb Zusha. They traveled to Poland, including the city. But Reb Zusha said he couldn't stay there overnight because of the horrible energy he felt there. Imagine. So getting back to our story, Joshua said to them, you must be deaf to the energy of the spies who were once here and plotted the slander against Eretz Yisrael, the Holy Land. You must not allow their energy to mingle with yours, to enter into your system and make you meshuggah, to be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you everybody else, means to fight the hardest battle which human being can fight and never stop fighting. You know, sometimes you go to a family event or another event, and some people's energy could get stuck onto you. Do not allow that to happen. Know what to expect and hold on to your own energy. That is your duty. That's also the best way you can help others. So that's why the Barditchevet, Rabbi Yitzchok says, be deaf. 2024 in Northwest Connecticut. What's the lesson about being like earthware? So Rabbi Yitzchok says, in the laws of the Torah, of ritual impurity and purity, there's a big difference between an earthen utensil and utensils made of other materials. You see, all utensils become impure through the contact of an impure object. For instance, carcass of an impure animal or a human corpse. And once it touches it with any part of the utensil, it becomes impure. And once the vessel becomes impure, it cannot be used for any sacred food, like temple sacrifices or tithing. An earthen utensil, however, becomes pure only if the source of impurity enters it inside the inner cavity and interior space of the vessel. So if, say, the corpus of an impure animal touches the entire exterior, it remains pure. But that's only an earthen vessel, not a vessel made out of any other item. Now, furthermore, in the case of earthenware, even if the corpse did not touch the vessel itself, rather it just entered the air of its interior without touching the actual vessel, it's still impure. Because when a source of impurity is suspended inside its walls without touching of the vessel, meaning it's hovering over it, it makes it impure. Now, why the distinction between an earthen utensil and any other one? You see, all impurity depends on the value of the vessel which is becoming impure. Vessels made from dung, for example, are not susceptible to impurity. The more valuable and significant the vessel is, the more it's susceptible to impurity. So the value of a utensil of wood or metal is not only in its form, the very material of which it is made of is also worth something. So contact with any part of it, including its outside surface, has an effect upon its ritual state. An earthen utensil, however, has value only as a container. So it's affected only by what happens to its inside. You see, earth on its own is valueless. So touching the outside surface does not affect its state of purity, because that does not constitute the value and significance of the vessel. Its entire value is that it contains something inside of it. So only when the impure substance goes inside of it, even if only the air inside of it, the place where it contains other substance, then it becomes impure. So this is the first message Joshua shared with the spies. Do not make this mission about yourselves. It's not about you. It's about what you represent. Success in your mission will only come about if you see yourselves as salesmen of earthware products. You see, if you're completely loyal to the mission you represent, to the calling given to you, to the work asked of you. Now, if you allow your egos to become the center of the mission, fear, insecurity, social pressure, and all these other forces, they might paralyze you. Only if you're like an earthenware vessel, where it's not about you, but about what you carry in you, what you represent, then you'll succeed. And this is true for all of us here in Northwest Connecticut in 2024. Lots of things can paralyze you in this world. Inner trauma, deep fear, insecurity, and all the types of forces inside and outside. See, when you take yourself less seriously and you take your mission more seriously, it's the greatest antidote. Because then it's not personal. It's not about me. It's about what I'm selling for. That makes all the difference. And I want to end with a beautiful story that happened this weekend. So I got a call from a fellow from New York City, and he tells me he was doing a deal with someone in our area. And the guy passed away. He's Jewish. His wife is Gentile. And he wanted to bring him to have a Jewish traditional burial. And he said, I've been trying to reach him. I'm trying to reach the spouse. It's now 24 hours and not successful. So I said, let me try. Friday morning, I call once. 12, I call again. 3, I call again. You know, the sun is setting, and I can't drive anymore. So I called the guy in New York. I said, did you get through? I didn't get through. Give me his address. And it was way up in the corner of Northwest Connecticut. And from my location, it was an hour drive. And I pull into the place there. We bring a challah, me and my beautiful Maishala. And there was no answer. We're ready to leave. And suddenly the family member calls me. I said, we're here. They can see us. The end result is that this fellow already had the Chevra Gadisha take care of him. And this weekend is this person's service, and he's being buried in the Jewish tradition. The Rebbe taught us, wherever God puts us, it's divine providence. God sends a wind shakes a tree, and a little leaf falls. It's because there's a little insect on the floor that's saying, God, please give me some shade. So everything is bashert. Wherever God put you, you have a mission. Stay deaf to the naysayers. Be like an earthware. Think about how not only yourself, but everyone in the world has something beautiful on the inside. They have a godly soul. And that's the difference between someone who's alive or, God forbid, someone who passed on. Your soul is in you, or the soul is out of you. Once the soul is out of you, you're buried. While the soul is in you, you can make this world a better world, a kinder world, and more loving world. So we're getting ready for the 30th Yortzeit of the Rebbe's passing. And the Rebbe accomplishes in lifetime huge, huge blessings for the world. But since he passed, it's gone to a whole new level. And God willing, we're getting ready for mid-July to launch a new JLI program, which is a 6-week course advice from the Rebbe in honor of the 30 years. We're going to have it in Litchfield, another one in Southbury, Oxford, and we're looking forward to having you join us. Stay tuned. With that, we open the floor. Any questions?
What's the topic of the JLI course?
It's the advice of the Rebbe. So it's the Rebbe's advice on marriage, getting along with your family, business, life. It's going to be all detailed in the email that's going out, God willing, next week on the JLI course.
Mhm. Wonderful.
Well, with that, we want to wish everyone a wonderful Shabbos. This week we have a special kiddush, schnapps and sushi, 9:30. We have you out the door already by 11:30. And only good health to everyone. May merit of us learning here, may merit to have true peace with the coming of Moshiach now. All the best, and sei gesund, and have a good Shabbos.